how to turn around a business. Now I'm going to caveat this by, this is not how to turn around a business in 5 minutes, which is probably, hopefully, how long the video is going to be. It is this is how you turn around a business in the space of 3 to 18 months. Depending on the problems in the business. But if you are in a position where your business doesn't feel like it's working properly, it's either it feels like it's failing in a way. It might be cash, it might be that you've got really awful staff problems, it could be any number of things, or it feels like you're just having the same year over and over again, and you're kind of bored with having the same year over and over again. You actually want to feel some success for once. This is what I do when I go into failing businesses. It works for every single business in the country. This is how a business runs, okay? And this is what I do with clients. So I'm going to talk you through it really high level. If you want some more detail or you want to talk about it, please do contact me. I offer free consultations and stuff like that. There's absolutely no obligation. I'm not here to sell to you. Obviously, I would love to do business with people, but at the same time, I just love helping businesses work and grow and be successful. So, if you are having any issues, please do let me know. Or talk to someone about it. I'm going to give you the high level here. A lot of this stuff actually isn't complicated when you know how to do it, and that's the thing. So my process is, it's called my growth method. So so the first thing is G, which is goals. And that is, a lot of business owners don't have goals. And if they do have goals, they haven't got deadlines. They're kind of airy-fairy. They don't really know what they're doing with them. And it's one of those, oh yeah, I want one day to do this. But there's no actual action or plan being put in place to achieve that. So the first thing is working out your goals, and that is your personal goals and your business goals. Your business goals feed from your personal goals, and what I tend to do is get people to actually firstly write down their goals, write down their deadlines, and also price up the lifestyles that they want, because then that will feed into how much they need to make in their business. As I say, then you want to work out your business goals, and again, it's pricing it up. So what does this look like in practice? What does it cost? What does your day-to-day life look like? What do you want to do in your business? What don't you want to do? All those sorts of things. It's really important to get really clear on what you want to achieve, what you want from your life, what you don't want from your life. That's just as important, and work out what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. The next thing is R, which is revenue and expenses. So business owners need to understand their numbers. I know it's like the least favourite part for a lot of businesses, but it's also one of the most important parts. Now, all of these parts are equally as important as each other, in my opinion, but unfortunately the numbers are the bit that gets left behind, and they go, oh yeah, my accountant takes care of that, my bookkeeper takes care of that, but they don't actually know what's going on a day-to-day basis. And it's super important to know exactly what's going on in your business. And then that feeds in again from your goals. So what are your numbers and your revenue expenses look like when you get to your goal, or what do you need to achieve on a monthly basis to make that happen? So there's things like setting budgets and all that sort of stuff included in that kind of need to work out what your revenue and expenses are. You've then got operations, which is O. So operations is everything that happens in your business on a day-to-day basis. So for example, you come in and you've got a team there, and they have their systems and processes. They might be really inefficient. It might be that you're paying people huge salaries, but they're not working hard enough for that salary, or you've not got enough automation and software. We live in a day now where there is so much automation and software that you can use for stuff that a lot of the time you can streamline people's roles really easily, and then what that does is open up time for them to be thinking and moving up and doing things that are much more valuable pieces of work that aren't necessarily just data entry and things like that. Now, a lot of business coaches or whatever, consultants, whatever, will tell you to automate your bookkeeping. Now, I mostly disagree with that sentiment. Now, I am a finance director by trade. I've been working as an outsourced finance director for years. However, my business generally tends to be going in as a finance director and then pulling apart a business and putting it back together again. So I've created this program to help more people do that and learn how to run a business properly. Now, the most common thing that I have in businesses is that their accounts are a mess. And that's the first thing I do when I go into a new business, is get their accounts straight. For that reason, because you don't know where you're going or what you're doing until you have those accounts straight, really. So that's why we have the revenue and expenses modules. But bookkeeping is one of those things that people see as a data entry task, but it's really easy to mess up, And when you leave it to automation and no one is fully in control of it, it becomes even more of a mess. So get yourself a really, really, really good bookkeeper and accountant. They're the two things in a business that can really, they should be able to say, again, people see it as a cost exercise. They're not. They should be able to at least save you their wage in either time, money, stress, whatever, right? So get yourself a good bookkeeper and accountant. Don't ever think that you can do it yourself if you're not that way not that way inclined. Or, if you haven't got time to do it and stuff, because it really does need to be done properly in every single business. This is not, if my business is over X amount of money, this is every single business needs a decent set of accounts that they can actually use and they can rely on. But anyway, sorry, I digress in that one. So yeah, we come back to operations. So yeah, it will be things like looking at software. So I had a client that I went into, they were completely paper-based, had paper all over the place. No one really knew what was going on. They had issues where staff were, like the engineers were coming in, looking at the book that the jobs for the next week were written on, looking at that book going, I can't be bothered to do that job, so they wouldn't turn up on a Monday, they call in sick. Whereas now we have a system whereby everything is online and they get their jobs sent to their phones and stuff like that. So it makes the process a lot smoother and there is a lot less paper based in the company. So we also look at things like a RACI, so we can see who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted and who's informed about various jobs. So everyone has a responsibility for every single thing that happens in the company. And we start looking at every single process in the business. We literally pull the entire thing apart, put it back together again. So roles and responsibilities for staff, systems, automation, delegation, literally everything that runs a business and makes a business run on a day-to-day basis and efficiently. And as I say, we look at what you've got now and then we look at what you could have and then we work to implement that over a period of time. And it might be that you're really efficient and actually operations isn't a problem in your business, but it's something that needs to be looked at. W is wealth, and what that is then looking at your balance sheet. So you have a profit and loss in a business, which is what happens on a, in the period. So if you look at a profit and loss for a month or a year, that's what's happened in the business in that period, in its normal operating cycle, essentially. So the normal operations of a business is what makes up the P&L. The balance sheet is arguably the most important document in a business, and that is the true wealth of the business. So it might be that you're making profit or you're making loads of profit, but actually the director is taking out way too much money and you're draining the business every month. That will then put the balance sheet into a negative, for example. So we start looking at that, we understand the true wealth of a business. If you were to shut down your business tomorrow, how much money would you be able to pull out is essentially what the balance sheet tells you. And then we also look at how to leverage debt, we look at cash, we look at all those things that need to come to make up the balance sheet, and then also to increase your wealth of the business and also your personal wealth. So you have a personal balance sheet. If you've got houses, cars, whatever, they are assets, but they also could be liabilities. And it's important to understand how those work and how you can use money and debt and your assets that you own to leverage your life and more money so that you can, make more money over time. Hopefully that makes sense. We then look at time. So many people waste so much time working in their business rather than on their business. And the problem, or just working on stuff that they shouldn't be working on. There are different levels of roles, okay? And actually, there are jobs that are worth different amounts of money. And it's important to understand what those jobs actually are worth to you as a business and what you should be outsourcing and delegating and stuff like that. And recruiting for, often, people don't want to recruit because they're worried that they can't afford it, but there's different ways of looking at it to make sure that actually that recruitment decision works for the business and it works for you over time. And it's important to start looking at that. and really understanding where your time goes and where it could be spent better. And then the most important one, H, is happiness. Are you happy in your business? Are you happy in your life? Are your team happy? Are you all working towards one common goal? Does everyone kind of know where they're at and what they're doing and all that sort of stuff? And how is the culture in the business? Happiness is super important. Now, I had a business where I had multiple staff, and I'd grown it to a point where it was almost a bit of a monster. The issue was that every time I took on a new client, it meant that I got dragged into the day-to-day and less of doing the kind of management consultancy, helping business owners grow thing. And I was doing more of like bookkeeping and accountancy, which is not particularly what I'm interested in. And it got to the point where my mum died, unfortunately, in 2022. I was also really unhappy in my relationship. I was unhappy in my business. I was unhappy in everything, in all honesty. And I spent the next 6 months pretty much blowing up my business and putting it back together again. And my life, I left that partner. I'm very happy in a new relationship. I'm getting married next month. And stuff like that. So I went through a massive period of change in my life and in my business to get to the point where I am now, which is where I am actually very happy. And I'm not stressed. I have money to do things. It's all worked out the way that I wanted it to work out. And now I'm moving on to this next chapter with helping businesses with the growth method and trying to teach as many people as I can. And that's what gives me joy and brings me happiness. So that's kind of the point of this entire course, structure, program, everything. So yeah, if you want help, give me a shout and I will see you in the next video.